Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a wonderful day ahead of you. Today in Transfer Plans, naturally, I shall have my transfer plans for Game Week 32, a review of Game Week 31, and also some football observations from the game week just gone by. If you have been enjoying the content around here, then do hit that subscribe button and like the video if you enjoy. But other than that, let's get into it. Now, you may be wondering why I have Alphonse Areola ahead of David Raya when I explicitly stated in my 4-minute section that I would be starting Raya over Areola. And to be honest with you, I had the same question for myself when I logged into my FPL team on Saturday afternoon. But that was the issue with this particular conundrum. I logged in on Saturday afternoon and I didn't log in once I had filmed my team selection solving your problems. And because I spent quite a while thinking about the decision, I just thought, okay, there's nothing I need to do because I'm not changing anything from that point, from when I put the video out. But what I didn't realize is earlier in the week, I'd been toying around with this, like potentially starting Areola over him. And I think there was some merit to it. And as such, I hadn't gone and reversed that change. So when Iliman Ndiaye scored on Saturday afternoon early on, I was very happy, but less so when Bournemouth scored once and then twice, courtesy of the Van Nissen brace. But in the end, it ended up all equal with both keepers scoring 2, so there's not too much to talk about there. Naturally, with Areola being away at Liverpool, Raya will get the nod. Well, I say naturally, but I did it away at Arsenal, so who knows? Maybe I'll do it away at an out-of-form Liverpool, but that's something to discuss on Thursday. We will start in the defence from right to left and discuss Josko Gvardio's 9-pointer. One thing that's really beneficial about him is, for example, Nico O'Reilly and Matthias Nunez, both the fullbacks, are classified as midfielders in the game. So in terms of competing for bonus points within his team amongst those who keep a clean sheet, it's just Ederson and Ruben Diaz. And Diaz got a yellow card early on and traditionally isn't anywhere as good as Gvardiol. And Ederson doesn't really make too many saves. So as a result, Gvardiol for bonus, especially when he gets a clean sheet, is just going to be miles ahead usually of the rest. And that's very, very helpful going forward. Similar to Cunha and Wood earlier in the season, when they scored, it was more of a 6-7 point goal. It feels like it was a 6-7 point clean sheet with Gvardiol when he does keep one. And to be honest, he was quite fortunate to keep one. Man United had some good chances in the game, but their finishing, as it has been for, I would say, just under 2 years now, has been very poor. And as such, they didn't take any of their opportunities. None of them really fell to Bruno. And had they done, I think it would have been a different story. But yeah, he records a 9-pointer in what was a very, very dull game. And just in general, the football this weekend was very, very poor. From an entertainment standpoint, at least. Dan Burn records a 6-pointer, and it would have been nice if it was an 11-pointer like Livramento recorded. In terms of the decision going there, I'm still pretty happy that I went Burn. I think saving the point one could be useful down the line. And I didn't think there was too much in it, especially Livramento playing down his less preferred flank. He had a lot more freedom against Leicester, but I don't think he'll get the same opportunity to return against Man United nor Crystal Palace. So in terms of the decision, I'm still cool with it. And it's a 5-point swing, so not the biggest one in the world. We'll come on to a bigger Newcastle swing later in the video. Konsa versus Munoz. Now, to be honest, for me, I'm still very much happy with the decision. A big part of the reason why I decided to bench Munoz was that I was quite adamant Brighton were going to score, and they did. He also didn't have much in the game compared to like a standard performance. If anything, it wasn't even close to what you normally would expect from Munoz. In terms of how many opportunities he got to hurt in the final third. And as such, look, he takes his one chance well and he scores. But I'm still pretty happy with the decision on my end. And, you know, sometimes these things happen, so that's okay. I wasn't expecting Constant to get 45. I was very much expecting him to get 90 and start. But he rotates him with PSG in mind. And I'm hoping that because he got 45 off, he'll start the Southampton game and we'll go from there. 7-point loss in that particular spot, which is quite a bit when you consider it's just a substitution dilemma for one particular game week between two players you own. But you know, it's all good. It happens, and I imagine many of you would have got the Munoz point. So congratulations. Let us start with the man on the bench who had a fixture of Leicester away, but returned 0 points because he didn't feature and ended up blocking me from Jacob Murphy. That was not exactly a 16-point swing because I get the Foden 1 point this week, which makes it 15. I also probably would have started Murphy. Actually, no, I don't think I would have started Murphy over Rodgers last week either. So yeah, 15-point swing, which is obviously quite a bit, especially considering I'm not overly bullish about Gordon playing a double at the moment. And we'll come on to that in transfer plans in the section of the video. Even if he plays the second, maybe not the first, and therefore it doesn't become a double game week for him specifically. That's not great. But look, it happened. If you went Murphy, congratulations. This was a fixture to really target, and he profited hugely from it. So well done. In terms of the rest, I mean, delighted with Morgan Rogers. 10 pointed last week, 9 pointed this week. Really should have had more. Had that chance that Sell saved. Had that chance from a corner where like he took a snapshot. It was well crafted or manufactured, but it was blocked as well. And just a few other moments in the game as well. I thought he looked really dangerous. On another day, it was a 15 pointer, but nonetheless, really, really happy with him. And he's been my best buy in Wildcard 30 by a mile. Salah, very happy he blanked because I didn't captain him and he was well above 100%, well above 150 as well. But he didn't capitalize, which we will discuss. So he didn't really have much in this game. Well, he didn't have too much in this game. He had a little bit, but not too much. And yeah, again, if you want Eze, congratulations, because he obviously scored a 9-pointer. And the real disappointment was Foden, because not only did he not get to the 60th minute mark, but he didn't really have much either. And you would have preferred that he get a little bit more minutes, to be honest. I think the knock that he picked up, because he was limping down the tunnel, had a lot to do with the fact that he was taken off. I really thought De Bruyne should be taken off in terms of performance, but like I said, I do think a lot of it was to do with fitness. So that's that. A very poor showing from the midfield at the start, aside from Rodgers, especially when Murphy records 16. But it is what it is, and it's okay. We'll go on to the next one, and I shall move on to the forwards. And then finally, the forward line. Mateta provided me with a very nice surprise early on, because I certainly wasn't expecting that. Recorded an 8-pointer and looked decent overall. And like I said, the football observations will come more so in the next slide. Marmoush had quite literally nothing. One shot where he took a really good touch and got a shot off, but Maguire blocked it well when he was down that left half space / central zone. And apart from that, honestly, he stung Onana's hands once with a really sharp snapshot from the edge of the box following a corner. But apart from that, City, they made absolutely nothing in the game. And like I said, it was just a very, very boring game. So a deserved 2-pointer. And then Isak with a 4-pointer. Now, I'm sure many of you would have seen the frenzy on X beforehand about whether he starts or whether he doesn't. And all those fake reports flying around. I would have loved if he didn't, to be honest, because obviously I had my Munoz 8-pointer coming off the bench, and aside from Rodgers, there wasn't much that was going to beat it. Some of Van Nissen's, but not too many out there. But he starts and he blanks. He had like one chance in the first half where he pulls it wide of the post when James Justin gifted him the ball, and then I think about a minute or two later, Harvey Barnes goes and scores. Even from that move, I thought if he takes one extra touch, his shot doesn't get blocked, and then he's got a decent chance of scoring. But it just wasn't his night. I know some people said he looked really unfit and not like himself. I thought he was fine, to be honest. And especially because he's only played 70, had his rest, and then we'll have the game on Sunday, so quite a big time gap between them. I think it'll be good to go, especially considering Newcastle are chasing that Champions League spot, and United at home and Palace at home certainly won't be easy games. We will discuss captaincy and everything you need on Wednesday in that video. I could be tempted to go to a Palace man. One of them, I really could. So we will discuss that then. But for now, I don't know why this side has a green arrow and the rest have a red, but it's a red arrow down to 50k, only 46 points. It was looking pretty good before going into tonight, but it wasn't meant to be, and that's okay. Still a relatively strong position, I feel, with the triple captain in the back pocket, as well as the bench boost and free hit. We'll kind of just see how it goes. Honestly, I think the triple captain could go anywhere from horrifically bad, I'm talking 3 points, 4 points, all the way up to 26, 25, around that range. I could see Mateta bracing in both games. I could equally see him blanking in both games, and same with Isak. So we shall see what happens with that. But overall, it's still a strong position. And as long as I close the season out well, it'll be a very good rank, I think, at the end of the year. I imagine so many of you are flying, as I've seen throughout the year and throughout the season in the comment section. So congratulations. Please do tell me about your top 100s, top 10s, top 1Ks especially. There seems to be a lot of top 1Ks. I would love to hear that. Now, let's move on to the football section. However, Bernardo Silva's inclusion. Now, I've spoken about this a few times on this channel this season, but in games that you predict him starting, I would reduce your expectation for City to score a certain number of goals, respectively, because for me, I don't think he's offering enough in this side to warrant a starting place. Naturally, Pep Guardiola knows a lot more about football than myself, but I simply disagree with him in this particular moment, because yes, he increases retention, and I completely appreciate that. And you want to increase retention when you have a side that isn't particularly boastful of weapons which stop those defensive transitions and can control them really well. I get that. But I do think that he offers you so little in attack nowadays that actually the lack of goal scoring threat is offsetting what you're getting in terms of reducing the defensive transition. One other thing that used to be useful is those rotations into like the deeper parts of that City build-up structure to give you a left-footed option from central areas where they had two right-footed centre-backs. With Guardiola playing at left centre-back now and you kind of having that option, that's not really like that big of a deal anyway. So if he is to be included in the side, which I don't think he really needs to be for any particular game, genuinely, I don't think there's a single game where I would play him. Maybe some games you play him left 8 when you don't want to play like one of Foden and De Bruyne, but I would rather just have Gundogan for a little bit more defensive now and like dueling capacity in that position, not Kovacic and Nico Gonzalez, right? That's probably my preferred pairing. So for those reasons, like I said, when he plays, just I think I would reduce expectations of City scoring X number of goals. Thirdly, Bukayo Saka. Now, one thing I was very interested to see was how he would respond to his injury physically and what state he would be in when he came back. One thing I noticed really early on in the game against Fulham is those micro-level actions still carried the same threat as they did prior to his injury. And that happened again against Everton. Whether it be like a simple shimmy to destabilize the defender or a little movement on the ball to create separation and then a more macro-level action occurs, for example, like a cross, or sometimes when he goes and takes on a man, a little bit more of a carry, all of those, they're so devastating and they're so dangerous. And every little action that he does carries so much threat or even potential threat, right, as a setup to the next one. And I just think he looks so sharp. So for me, I really wouldn't be going without in 33. I know they're managing his minutes well, but for me personally, they'll be out the Champions League by that time and they won't have anything else to play for. By that time, he will have also had a decent amount of minutes in his legs. And I wouldn't be surprised if he starts Brentford, to be honest. So for all of those reasons, I think he's very, very solid going forward. If not from 32, thereon. Crystal Palace's build-up structure was really interesting. It was more like a 3-1-1-4. And I say that because you have the three centre-backs and they were wide. Then you had like Kamada and Wharton in a staggered pivot. And I say 4 because you would see like particularly Sarr actually in this game rotate on the right-hand side to drop in to receive. And the wing-back so high, almost being in line with him. And then Eze obviously in the left half space as well. And one thing I noticed is compared to most sides, the spacing between each players, particularly the centre-backs and the pivot, was huge. Like you would have the centre-backs close to the touchline. The central centre-back obviously in the middle. Kamada would like almost so isolated in terms of the spacing as well. And then Wharton to his right when he was receiving. And I just think that against a really physical side who press very well, this could be a little bit dangerous and they could see a fair few turnovers in their own half, which could lead to chances for the opposition. I noticed a couple of times Baliba just jumped onto Kamada and he's someone who boasts that level of physicality, right? And he got very unlucky. Like on another day, the ball just falls a little bit better for him for the tackle and Brighton are in. So that is something just to consider in terms of the defence of keeping clean sheets against particularly Newcastle, who will go man-to-man high. And I think if they are to persist with that build-up structure and that version of it where the spacing is so big and the wing-backs are so high so they can't really help defensively if the ball is to get turned over in those transitions, that is something to consider against the Newcastle press. Morgan Rogers, I think, should be very high up your wish list for Gameweek 33 because he's just playing really well at the moment. Obviously, Villa got the form. They've got the fixtures to an extent as well. And I think this new right-sided role suits him much more. For example, the game away at Arsenal, right? I remember that. And the types of positions he was taking up were certainly wider and he wasn't drifting too much. And therefore, the type of actions that he was completing weren't really ones which would likely see you get goals or assists. I've spoken numerous times about how he's more proficient from those left-hand side angles. What he's allowed to do now, however, is drift inside a lot more. And I think that really helps him. Obviously, his goal comes from the left-hand side as well. And I know he started the game on the left, but I'm even talking about when the substitutions were made. And, for example, like he got in on that right-hand side a little bit more. I think that was so beneficial. And if he, like in terms of the shift in the right-hand-sided role, but if he is starting on the left, that's a big positive, right? I think that's where most of his returns have come from. The goal against Brentford. I remember the goal against City. I remember, obviously, the goal against Forest. And there'll be many more as well. So, he should be high up your wish list, in my opinion. Lastly, Ruben Amorim's had quite a few impressive performances as of late in the Europa League, against Leicester, against Man United, and there have been a couple more as well, right? And I say him specifically because I think from a coaching standpoint, it's been very good as opposed to just being the players. They're becoming increasingly difficult to break down. They're creating more chances, and you're not making too many clear-cut chances against them either. Their finishing is awful and has been for just under 2 years now, but that's not the point here. I would be careful of being overly bullish about Newcastle's prospects against them. I'm not saying they won't win. They could. I just don't think they're going to slap them, right? And I would just be a little bit careful about Isak triple captain and not just saying like, okay, you know what? Best striker in the league this season at home to these two guys, neither of them inside the top 10, etc., etc. I really don't think it's that simple. And I think United have been a lot better as of late. I think he'll go there, operate in a 5-4-1 off the ball deep, and I think Newcastle will struggle to break it down to an extent. Like Murphy and Barnes, if they're the two wings that are going to play, aren't really the wings you'd want to break down a deep block. Bruno's helpful, but like, for example, Joe Linton's not really that type either. So these are all things to consider going forward, and I really would give United the respect I think they deserve for these type of games. There are three particular players who I may sell in Game Week 32. The first being Anthony Gordon, second being Phil Foden, and the third, but to a far lesser extent, being Gabriel. Selling Gabriel is extremely unlikely, and to be honest, I'm not even going to go, because the only real reason I would do it is a bench boost 32, but that's almost definitely not happening. We will start with the most pressing and important concern, and that being Anthony Gordon and his state of fitness. I certainly have my concerns, and I'm not overly bullish on getting a start against Man United. Not just due to the fact that his fitness level clearly isn't where I'd like it to be as an owner, but also due to Barnes' performance level. And when he's playing so well, is there really a need to disrupt the team and risk Gordon? No, I don't think so. I also think that, and this is a mistake on my part, that I might have allowed Eddie Howe to sell me a lie, which he's done many a time to many this season. But Tuchel, I remember saying somewhat exactly so that it didn't look good, right? And Eddie Howe was like, oh, it's a bruise, and hopefully we'll have him back in training. And he was a bit more positive, a lot more positive about it. And I wonder if I've just been sold a lie by Eddie Howe. And in reality, it's much worse than we originally thought. And yeah, it's a little bit of an error by me, I think. And maybe as a result, I miss out on the Murphy points. That's not. Maybe I have done, and it was a wrong decision. And in that case, then I hold my hands up and admit I got it wrong. And the key thing for my team is I also have Morgan Rogers, and I think he's going to start the Champions League. I wouldn't be surprised if this is his rest game against Southampton. And this is not guaranteed because Unai Emery plays him anytime, anywhere. But it makes a lot of sense to rest him. And as such, if he's not going to start, Anthony Gordon's only going to get 1/none. Phil Foden, honestly, I'm not sure if he starts either. I think it'll be Doku, Marmoush, Savio, one of like Gundo, Bernardo, or Kovacic to pair with Nico. How have I forgot his name? The six that they signed. How have I forgot his name? Gonzalez? Yeah, I think so. How have I forgot his name? That was appalling. And then one of like, I don't know, let's say De Bruyne or Foden, or even Grealish in the middle to accompany, right? If that is to happen, then I'll have three midfielders who don't. That won't be great. So in that case, I'll probably have to make a midfield transfer. I could go to Saka, and it's expected minutes dependent in 32. I think he'll start in 33, but obviously we'll see how things unfold midweek in the Champions League and whether or not it's looking likely for a start against Brentford. If not, Savinho, because he's also got double game week 33, and I'd very much be looking ahead to that. The thing about Gordon is, I wouldn't be surprised if he got one, and therefore, is it not beneficial for me to save the transfer, treat him like a single game week asset, and then go from there? But on the same time, he might get 0. You might just get like 2 bench appearances to ease him back in, or 1 bench and 1 start, like 30, 60, and so on and so on. Right now, if you had to ask me, I think I'm leaning just towards selling Gordon for one of the 2 options I mentioned, but they're not particularly attractive in 32 either. I can always play 4-3-3 and just sell one of them, not even start Rodgers. But what I think I'll do is I'll start Rodgers, and then I expect one of Foden or Gordon are going to be sold this week. Ideally, I'll start Rodgers, start Gordon as well because he's fit and ready to go, which I really don't think is going to happen, to be honest, at the moment. And then Foden will be there on the bench just in case one of them doesn't. Well, in that case, it would be Rodgers who doesn't, and hopefully he starts as well. I'll also have Guardiola on the bench in that case. You may be wondering, why haven't I gone for the obvious move in Murphy or Barnes? Last week, I spoke quite a bit about how I didn't think the double in particular was great for Murphy's chances when it comes to goal scoring, and I stand by that. Obviously got a brace against Leicester, but I wasn't really commenting on that fixture. It was very much just Man United and Palace, given what they boast and given the type of goals he scores. And then when it comes to Barnes, or what if Gordon takes some minutes? And the other thing with these two is I don't have like a transfer spare to use because of Gabriel's injury. Like I'm already a transfer down on my original plan. I needed 3 for 33 to optimize the bench boost, and now I need 4. For all of those reasons, I just don't think I'll go for a Newcastle mid. I also don't think the ceilings are too high against the United side that I spoke about. I think will cause Newcastle, or give him a tough test at least. Palace, I'm a bit more open to Newcastle scoring a few more goals, but still, it could be quite difficult. Yeah, for all of those reasons, I think one of the midfielders are going to get sold for Saka or Savinho, and from there we will just see. But I imagine things change and develop until Thursday. And that is all she wrote for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I do hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please do drop a like on the video and equally subscribe. Aside from that, I shall see you Wednesday morning bright and early for everything you need. And it will be a very, very important one going into double Gameweek 32 because there is the bench boost, there is the triple captain, there is which assets to buy, and so on and so on. So have a wonderful few days in the meantime. I shall see you then. Goodbye.